Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to the last and final session on Game Jams. We have a special masterclass today. We want to answer every question that you might have around game jams, how to go about building stuff in these game jams. And up till now, we had masters like talking about various aspects of game building. We had Saikat, who talked about the business of gaming. We had Anand, who talked about game design. We had then Pradeep talking about game art, VK talking about the coding behind the games, and then two sessions around gaming engines. And we are so excited about getting your games in hand and testing them out. Hope you guys are excited too. Any questions that you have around game jams or WTF community, drop them in the chat below. We'll be happy to answer those. And today again, I have with me Machia from IGDC to introduce our speaker for today. You guys have already seen and met him on one of the sessions, but this time he is a master taking the session himself.
Hey guys, good evening. Thanks, Saransh. Welcome back after a day's break with one more session. The last one before we go live and get into the game jam. And while we did everything else, we were like, what about a session that really talks about what to do at game jam? And we had somebody who is a master at it. He, as part of game dev, the Yadu Rajiv, runs the build your own game every year at IGDC as part of IGDC. He's also been somebody who's very very bullish on the Indian gaming ecosystem. He works very closely with multiple people across. Uh, and Yadu is somebody who's like who's done multiple things. Right, he's a game designer, developer. He's a curator. He's a proper evangelist. Uh, he like started a company in 2011, went on then to teach at Srishti School of Design and Art, joined Light Byju's as the lead game designer, and then since 2008 he's actually been supporting the community. He's now of course a Play Simple as a game designer. You can follow him at Yadu Rajiv on YouTube, on Twitter and LinkedIn. But more than that, he is somebody who's, like I said, like his expertise has always been on building community, and one of those people in the industry who's very very approachable and loves to help younger devs. So we just thought before we go on to the game jam, there's nobody better than Yadu to do the honors of telling you what to do, what not to do at a game jam. So Yadu, welcome to the show, uh, and we will let you handle this, Yadu. We're gonna go off. Guys, please, if you have questions, keep dropping them on chat like you always do, and we will keep interrupting Yadu to ask you questions. Yeah. Thanks, Yadu. Over to you.
All right. Thanks, Machaya. Thanks, Saransh. I hope you guys can hear me. I have my phone open just in case. Just in case. This is what, like, I think organizing is also all about. That hey, you need to kind of have your screens open so that you can see what's happening elsewhere as well. Cool. I know that much I kind of gave like an intro, but I will also probably just do it one more time just for the heck of it. But just before we start, so what can you kind of expect from the small talk masterclass thing? Mostly, let's say, like I and a lot of us essentially have been doing this for a while, both jamming and organizing and like making games for and as well. And just like how game development is iterative, like over the years, we've had a chance to see what works for people and what hasn't worked for people. And hopefully that kind of experience we'll be able to kind of give you like some insights about how to kind of approach these 0 to 1 kind of situations where you're like building things from the get go. No noise in the background for you guys. Sorry about that. Yeah. So we've collated a bunch of things that I think that might help you with your kind of game jam journey. Um, so yeah. So onwards we go. My name is Yadu. I'm like much I said, I'm a lead game designer at Play Simple, where I make casual mobile puzzle games. I also co-founded GameDev.in with a bunch of friends. It is a volunteer-driven community for creators in India. We run a lot of initiatives, and you can find them on our website, GameDev.in. One of which is like a Discord community as well, which you can drop down and talk to a bunch of other creators as well. I also help out with the IGDC Council in the initiatives there. We also run the BYOG, which is India's oldest game jam. In the past, I worked with the Global Game Jam as an executive committee member. Made digital games, educational games at Byju's. I've taught for like 7 years at different places. Mostly, the chunk of it was around games. I co-founded a studio with my friends in Delhi called Hashdash. I was into UX as well, which I think pretty much is what games is all about, which is user experience. Cool. So, what has been sort of my experience? Like it kind of, I just want to kind of give some context as to where this is coming from. My personal history with jams has been like very old. I've always wanted to make games, and I think Ludum Dare was like one of the oldest jams out there, which was very interesting. It was very elusive because I didn't have the skills at that point back in 2006 to kind of make games. And I was just trying to still figure things out. And you would see these people make games and talk about them, and you would wonder, like, how do you make them? And you'd be in like the TIG forums, where people are making things. Like you see people like doing a lot of work on these spaces, and you would wonder how you would kind of end up doing them. So Ludum Dare has been a great inspiration for like doing jams ourselves and even like taking part in them eventually as well. One of the other key game jams which I was I happened to end up taking part in at least once was the experimental gameplay project, which was super interesting because it was fundamentally focused around experimentation in the game space. We can talk about the EGP at another time because I don't want to kind of ramble. And all of these kind of experiences had sort of helped build and shape what we do today as well. The BYOG kind of started in 2008. We've done about 16 of them. We've kind of done multiple in some years, and we may not have done in some. And now it is like a stable kind of an annual thing, and it has a life of its own, which is kind of closely modeled after the Ludum Dare, the 48-hour compo that we wanted to do. We've also been doing global game jams since 2013, and in the last year we've had like 12 locations jamming simultaneously in India, which is like insanely cool. It and a bunch of collaborators. It's not just like a singular effort or anything. It's basically each city location has an organizer, a site organizer, coordinating with a regional organizer, and then running the jam across the same across different cities, keeping the theme a secret and and managing the logistics of the site and all that. So it's a pretty cool thing, and like it's great that we've kind of been able to do that successfully over the years. So yeah, so a lot of things. I know that I'm sure there are like different bunches, different cohorts of people in the group who's watching or will watch this later. So just to kind of for sanity, I'm just gonna walk you through this. This essentially like what is a game jam? I at this point I don't know if you need an answer for this, but it's essentially it's essentially an exercise, like it's a constraint driven exercise where you essentially make a game either by yourself or you collaborate with people. So a lot of times the constraints are what they are usually a theme. Like in the BYOG, we do three themes. The Ludum Dare has like a theme selection process where you vote for themes and then you eventually pick one. But that theme is also revealed to you only at the time of the jam. The duration is also a thing that comes into play most of the time. Usually the GM, like for example, the GMTK is like a 48-hour jam. The 7-day FPS and the 7-day roguelike are like 7-day jams. The AGBIC, which is a fun jam you should take part in, which is a game by its cover, where you get to make games based on Famicom cases, which are also made up, which is like really cool. But that lasts for like a month and a half. So which is like really cool. So a theme can also be a constraint in a different kind of a way as well. Sometimes the location can be a constraint. The GGJ, for example, is a location-based jam, unlike let's say the BOIG, which is an online jam, and the jam that you'll be participating in the next few days, which is also an online jam. The Nordic Game Jam is also a location-based jam. You have to go to Denmark to kind of participate. And sometimes constraints can appear in the form of tools as well. The GM48 is a game maker specific jam. So you're forced to learn that tool and use it and make a game with it. So constraints can be interesting, but the fundamental reasons of why do you want to take part in a jam is what is far more interesting for me. So when we started back in 2008, the whole idea of like building communities. We like both Kinshuk and I, who started GameDev.in. Back then, it had a different moniker, but the whole reason why we kind of ended up doing a bunch of the community focus, and we were both community folks ourselves. We were coming from open source community work and doing open source like events as well. So we couldn't find collaborators to kind of work with at that point. So the one of the foundational things, the first BYOG that we did was like a small group of people trying to make one game. So collaboration has always been like the sort of, you can do a solo jam, but at the same time, the whole reason would be to kind of see who you can work with. These collaborators can eventually end up being your CTO or your chief creative officer or somebody, you end up building a company together with or something. So it's especially when early in your sort of cycle in your life, when you're like right out of college or like early in your jobs or something, it's kind of this sort of a process will help you find right collaborators, which you may not have had the opportunity to work with, like like-minded people wanting to do a singular thing together. So collaboration being one of the most important things. I mentioned the EGP before. The EGP stands for Experimental Gameplay Project. So experimentation can also be a focus of what you want to do. That is to kind of try to figure out, like, do something interesting, which is not going to typically work in the market right now. And what if it does? What if it goes viral? So experimentation is another thing to kind of think about. It could be a way of exploring new tools for yourself. Let's say you wanted to figure out how to learn to use Affinity, for instance, right now instead of any of the Adobe tools. I wonder why. But if you wanted to do that, then maybe this could be an opportunity to explore these tools. If you want to make music, for instance, if you're a game designer and want to make music, this could be a chance to kind of explore that opportunity. It could also be for learning. Exploration, learning kind of go hand in hand, so I'm not going to delve deeper. But one interesting point I would mention is that I've used jams in classrooms, which has been like very good and successful. I've run like 2-week-long classes and 2-week-long jams across the classes, and that has been something really great. You could also use these in your studios also to kind of generate a lot of ideas in terms of exploring as well, which could be like feature specific or game specific within. Again, remember, you can choose your own constraints for those things. And also to have fun, obviously, just to, kick back, make a game over a weekend and like, have just fun doing it. So yeah, so that those are the kind of things that why you would end up doing a jam like this. Of course, there's also the prize money probably, which could actually get you started going on a journey of your own. So there is that. So I think I've eaten up a lot of my own time, so I'll continue. So let's jump into some things before to keep in mind before you take part in the jam in the next 2 days. I've broken this down into like 4 bits, which is before, at the beginning, and while, and at the end, and after. Oh yeah, sorry, 5 things. So we'll go through one by one. Cool. Um, so before, okay, so before you need to ideally be prepared, which is like, I think this is the right moment to do all of this, is to just kind of be prepared, um, and be ready to get into the jam. I think the first thing that you should do is to block your calendars, tell your friends, tell your family, tell people that you are going to be not available this weekend. And I know that things will happen, life will happen. You'll have to go do something else. Something might come up, and then you'll have to kind of go AFK for a bit. But if you take care of that, like saying that, hey, I'm going to jam. So I will, my calendars are blocked this weekend. So it's always good practice, because then you can kind of avoid people coming to you and disturbing you while you're focused doing this thing. The other thing is to kind of have a setup ready for communicating with your team in a way, be it Discord, be it WhatsApp, be it any tool. I think today it's mostly Discord. So I think Discord would be a great place. Set up your channel, set up your chats, so that everybody's in the right place at the right time, so that you don't have to do it last minute. And this is crucial because almost all your communication is going to be there, and everybody should be available in some sense, so that they can kind of talk to each other. The other thing is that it's what is your personal goal with the jam, and let your team know about it. For a lot of people, why jam is it's a very personal question also. I mean, I mentioned a bunch of things earlier in the previous slide about why you would jam, about collaboration, learning, yada yada. So why do you want to do this jam? It could be the prize money, fair. It could be just exploration. It could be experimentation. But you need to kind of set some expectation right with your team, so that if you are going to learn a new tool, right, people are not good. Let's say you're a Photoshop expert, or you are a 3D, extremely great 3D modeler, but you want to use this jam to make music, right? But if you don't tell people, they expect you to, I mean, maybe like a different example would be that if you want to learn a new tool, for instance, uh, uh, you're a Maya person who wants to learn Blender during this jam. So just set those expectations right with your team, so that they know what you are kind of getting into, and then that will be clear for yourself as well. Why do you want to? Maybe it is just to build a portfolio piece for yourself. So just have an idea of what is your personal goal with the jam. Fourth thing is to be ready with your tools. This goes without saying. If you plan to use specific things and you know what your role is, as a game designer, I know what my role is. An artist, you know what your role is. As a developer, you know what your tools are. So basically, be ready with them, and have them handy. Just get them ready so that they are available to you at the moment that you need them. The fifth point is essentially very different. It says be clear about your responsibilities, but those are essentially your fundamental responsibilities. There will always be something else for you to do, and be ready to pick those up also, because in a jam, there are no clear rules or clear roles as such. So if you are an artist, doesn't mean that you are going to be hunting for the perfect audio file. Or if you are a designer, that doesn't mean that you are trying to make music or find sound effects on some website. So you wear all the hats, and that's a fun bit of it, where you get to wear all the hats along with your worn out hat as well, which is your fundamental primary kind of role. So yeah, so be clear about your responsibility, but at the same time, be ready to do everything as well. Have a plan on what and how you're going to communicate. Like I said, how do you want to share the documents, share assets, share code internally? Like if you want to set up a Google Drive, if you want to set up a Dropbox, what is everybody comfortable with? Don't wait around for the jam to start to kind of figure all of this out. If you have to set up a GitHub repo, for instance, do that early. It doesn't, it takes 5 minutes. It will be a bit more hectic on Friday. So do that now, and get everybody on board about key what are we using. If you have like specific things that key, I will use a Trello board for some tracking, or I will use workflowy for some something else. So if you have certain things that you use that you're comfortable with, for instance, some people use Figma, some people might use something else, and if there are other people who don't even have an account, then it's like again cumbersome to kind of get on board. So have some plan to what things that you're using, and how to set up that structure, and share all these things early on, and also have a rough plan about how you are breaking up the day, so that you are able to kind of plan your breaks. If you want to prep food or something and keep it in the fridge, for instance, that'll be helpful. So this is all coming from sort of like what's great about kind of seeing other people do crazy things, especially like Udemy, for instance. They would keep posting pictures of what they are eating. And usually people prep way ahead for all of these things because they know that they're going to jam for 72 hours or 48 hours. So they're like, oh, I don't want to I don't want to get up and cook, or I don't want to figure out what to do. So just have a plan for those kind of life activities as well. Yeah, so be prepared before you go into the jam. Right, so we move on. The next thing is to, at the start of the jam, which is probably like Friday, what do you want to do? You want to get your scope right, time box and brainstorm ideas, and do that quickly as possible. Get everybody together on something. If you're in a physical location, meet each other together at least for like a couple of hours, so you can kick things off. You can go home and do it afterwards. Go home and do the jam afterwards. But if you are in a physical location and able to like, I will look at the questions in a bit, because I think it's easier for me to just talk right now, and then we can take the questions in a bit if that is fine. Just heads up. So yeah, so what I was saying was that try to time box this activity and also try to meet up in person to kind of get the collaborative sort of brainstorming going. Use sticky notes, write things down, break out your books, and then hash out ideas. And being in a physical location, which is also time bound, gives you like there is an urgency to kind of finish that. And ideally, you should finish that as soon as possible, and don't spend more than like a fraction of the time, a percentage of the time. Set aside a percentage of the time for this activity. What's interesting with the second point is that it's like people talk about, hey, just throw out all ideas, and usually the first ideas are all poor ideas, and then the later ideas are more deeper and all that. Probably true for deeper ideas, very deep ideas, which take a lot of time to build. So most of the time for jams, what I've seen is that the first thing that usually happens in the first 15 minutes usually ends up, at least, you would get a finished game. So the shorter the brainstorm, the shorter the session to kind of get on the same page as quickly as possible, the better. So yeah, so weirdly enough, like usually your first ideas are, you would see yourself kind of come back in full circle. Like, let me know once you've done the jam. Tell me if you went through this process, you thought about a lot of ideas, and eventually you came back to the first idea. Like, let's see if that happens. Right. So once you have an idea, remember to like quickly break them down into features. Make a very visible shared list, a task list, ideally a shared list of some sort. Whatever tool you want to use, you can use. Usually an Excel sheet works, like a Google spreadsheet works, or even a Google document with like a table or something also works. Whatever works for you works. But ideally, it should be a collaborative document that you're able to share between people. And you break it down into your sort of features and like subtasks if possible, if they are larger features, just like how you would do it in like bigger projects. Ideally prioritize your sort of task list. Must have, should have, could have, won't have, like a Moscow prioritize, and So that gives you an idea of what to cut and what is fluff and what is needed. And I and then essentially once that list is done, then you're kind of ready to go. So yeah, the point number 5 may be a bit controversial, but I'll tell you why. I put this early in scope because just to give you a heads up, because I think you should plan this early. A lot of things, there is a lot of dependency in the sense that if you want to make your game playable for the browser, you might have to either figure it out how to do it in the tool that you're using. How do you compile for the web or something if it's a particular tool like Unity or GameMaker or Godot or anything else that matter for that matter. If you're using HTML, if you're using like any other WebGL driven engines, it's probably easier to do. But I'm saying the reason I'm putting it here is that you might have to scope for this and plan for this if you have not done this before. If you are like only done games for Windows, or if you've only made a mobile game, so it might be you might have to kind of just take a minute to kind of think about this. This might also affect your design decisions, maybe depending on the screen and all those input factors and all that. Certain things might work better on the web, certain things might not work better. So just take these into consideration. And I say that make it playable on the browser because it is very easy to play a game on the browser today, especially if you're on a PC or something. And most people end up playing on a PC. I mean, if it's on the web, mostly it's easier to play on the PC. And the friction between downloading a game from, let's say, itch.io or the friction for a jury to play this, for instance. This is also coming as an organizer. I would like games to be played on the browser. But aside from that, I think as a general consumer, the sort of the friction from like clicking a button to play the game as opposed to having it to download, unzip a file, go to a directory, double click a file to play it, and then hoping for the best could also, it takes, I mean, there is, you see how the funnel could drop in between all those points. And then again, like there are these platform considerations like, hey, if I make an APK, what happens? If I make a WebGL, if I make a Windows build, what happens? If I make I think my presentation got cut out, but so depending on what platform that you're kind of targeting, I'd still recommend having like a kind of a WebGL build available to play. Again, controversial probably maybe, but it makes everyone's life a lot easier. So keep that in mind. Yeah, and also have a clear deadline, especially when you're starting out. Have a clear deadline to when you would want to stop working on the game, which means that you should ideally stop everything about the game like at least an hour or two before submitting it. And that submission should also have a buffer because uploading it to itch.io where everyone else is also uploading, like another, like how many ever people are jamming are uploading. So it might end up taking a lot of time and effort, and then things could go wrong, which usually does, as we have seen many, many times. So have yourself a good 3-hour buffer also. So if it is a 24-hour game, it's a 48-hour game jam, you have minus 3 hours also, essentially. So that's what I'm saying. So have clear deadlines for yourself. Yeah. The last point here is that you know what you're capable of doing in the time you have. What that means is that just be aware of how much of the things that you want to do that you can actually do. I remember going to a global game jam once with a friend of mine. And we decided this was post Florence, the game. And we wanted to make a game which is kind of narrative heavy. Yeah, I think this was that jam. Yeah. So it was narrative heavy, and we decided to do something. And all I remember is, I mean, like a couple of times this has happened. Like I thought I'll write, and then I remember just writing for 2 days and not having made a game. So like I thought it would be easy for me to just, quickly get into this narrative thing and then also do the game design. And I remember my friend just sitting there, just fiddling with the tools and, having built something. So I think the whole, like, even if I wanted to write, I think I should have had a way better plan and I should not have kind of dragged my friend down with me. So know what you're really capable of, and like even if you want to learn, go like know going in that you're going in to learn. That you will make mistakes. So then what happens is that you won't like bite off a lot more than you can chew. Like you might, do a smaller narrative, for instance. You might try to present it differently. Which will also help you in scoping. That even if you are let's say you're a developer and you know that it will take 4 hours to do this, but like you really need to know yourself well enough to kind of say that, hey, this is going to take 4 hours and not more than that. So yeah, really think about that, and that will come in handy. Cool. So that's the at the start bit. So you're prepared now, and you've scoped out and planned your jam, and what next is to essentially jam and have fun. But also there are other things. One thing I would want you all to keep in mind is to get to something playable as fast as you can, because if you don't, then the likelihood of finishing the jam is lesser. So if you can get to a place where you have your sort of core mechanics in place, and build that out in a small prototype, and to quickly test if those things, those interactions, that play experience is fun or not, because that will be the thing that you're building on top of, right? Ideas in your head can seem interesting, but till you get it into a space where you can actually play with a controller or play with a keyboard or play it on a screen, you still really have no idea whether it's going to work. Even if you are very confident, we've seen that, hey, so confident about ideas, come to, you play it out, you see that, yeah, this is not working. So get to something playable, test it as quickly as you can, with whoever is around. Ideally, not the people around you, because ideally people who are not game devs. And you can also test with them, not saying you shouldn't, but test with friends and other people, and see how actual sort of experience from other people, and see how that kind of ties into and what that feedback is like. So sort through those feedbacks, reprioritize your task lists. If people say stuff like, hey, it doesn't sound so great, or it doesn't feel, so a lot of these answers will be vague, but just figure out what makes sense for you at that point, and then look at the list of things, and maybe, adding music might be a better thing early in the game than later in the game or something. So again, depending on the context, you roll with the punches. And yeah, and the fourth point is, Seki, remember there's always something to do. So I've seen in game jams, like teams of people sitting together, one person sitting and coding continuously, three people are just on their phones looking at, I don't know, Instagram or something. So that's not the case. There are so many, you have like 48 hours, and there is only so much time, and there are so many things to do. So I'm sure there will be something or the other to do in that task list, which we will get to also. I'll kind of give you an idea of what happens in the next bit. So just remember that there is always something for you to do. Just go back to the list. Even if it is something small, you should be able to pick it up and do it. And even if it is not your role, which is my point, that if it's a place where you get to wear all the hats. So remember, there's always something to do. So go and do it. If nothing, you can document, right? You take photos, or you take screenshots. You talk to people. You share your work, and you write things down. You write a blog post if you need to, right? Share those updates. Send it out in social media. Share a screenshot. Screenshot Saturday, by the way, hashtag screenshot Saturday on Saturday. So remember to share there. There are lots of these social media things that you can do. Kind of build that interest for your game. Send early screenshots, send early videos, make interesting things that can kind of bring people to your game as well. This is a tiny microcosm for an actual game that you can build and put it on the store, right? So you go through that cycle of like quick marketing. At the same time, this is also documentation that can go into other spaces, like your portfolio, for instance, and also something that other people can find you Like they would go back and look at this documentation and say, oh, this person has done interesting work. They've put a lot of thought into it and they've clearly documented all of these things. So great job. Yeah. So you have something to do. If nothing, document and then share updates. Also, remember to take breaks, drink water, walk around at least, take a break, go out, because it's really easy to kind of get lost in this. And at this point, I really can't jam because I can't not sleep. I need at least 6 hours of sleep. So remember to take breaks, even if it's like power naps of 2 hours or something in between and in smaller breaks, but do eat food, do drink water, don't kind of do it. This is not what game dev like is about. It's not about the crunch, it's about the creativity and the focus. But yeah, so and remember to have fun doing all of these things as well. So yeah, so that's the things that you do while kind of jamming and having fun. At the end, um, polish your game. So remember that I said be ready sort of way before the jam ends, um, and take some time to polish your game. So leave a chunk of time in your jam time so that you can actually polish the game, be it animations or be it sounds or VFX or anything for that matter that you kind of left out in your Moscow prioritization. Kind of go back and, the smaller things, the secondary animations that you wanted to do, or that special sound effect or that weird music that you wanted to put in. So, like, or, if you wanted to add anything at this point, would be the time to kind of spit, shine, and polish. Um, Remember to capture screenshots of the final build. Remember to make gameplay videos. Also, remember to probably make some FTUEs for your game at this point if people are not able to understand what your game is about, which will be super helpful. And nobody wants to read a lot of these, like nobody reads tutorials, as you know. But if you can add some small bits of things in your game that will help people play the game, that will be helpful. Write your game's description. HIO has a whole lot of process to kind of upload. You have to fill a form, you have to upload the files. We will talk about all of this hopefully down the line, about we'll share some more details about this. But like if you've not submitted a game to HIO, there is some work that goes into it. And ideally add descriptions, ideally add credits, ideally add screenshots and gameplay videos, and also embed your game as well. And be sure to kind of test that your game works. A lot of times what we've seen is that people wait till the last hour to submit the game. It's fine. Make a small game, finish a game. I mean, even if you take a day and a half to make the game, which is fine. Like I'm saying, it really depends on your scoping. So scope it so that you have time for all of these, like hours, like 4 or 5 hours. You should just do for this kind of upkeep. And so make sure you test that the thing works on the target platform so that you can so what I was saying was that once we've had people who come back here, they've uploaded the game and they've not even checked whether this works or not, and they've realized that the time has ended, the jam has ended. They're like, oh, can we like, we have like, the game is broken, it's not playable. So like we can't really help you there at that point, like if you've not done your due diligence. Yeah. All right. So the jam is done. So what now? So ideally go get some sleep. It's like, I think 6:30 or 7 or 7:30 where the jam ends, I suppose. And then you need to take a break. It's fine. Come back with fresh eyes. And then I would recommend playing other people's games and giving feedback to them. Leave comments, which are kind and gentle. And because most of these people, most of the people who are jamming probably are first timers. You might know better. You might see a weird janky platformer. So like you don't have to, everybody makes a platformer. You also made a platformer at some point if you've made games. Yeah, so remember to do that, give feedback. And then take a step back and look at all the feedback that you would also have gotten. And remember all the things that you've cut out in your prioritization. See whether you want to kind of do all of that at this point. Maybe continue the work a bit more. see if you want to polish this, how much you want to polish, how much do you want to take it forward, or before you stop work on it. Um, then you can ask whether you have this. Is there a future for this game? Is it like an interesting thing to kind of take forward, maybe redo? A lot of games from Ludum Dare or the GMTK Jam, for instance. There are lots of jams out there. There are lots of jam games which have become commercial games. On the top of my head, I think, like, let's say Loop Hero is a game that was like a Ludum Dare game, which ended up being a full game. Like it's strange that I can't remember any, but like there are lots of games, which jam games like Galcon. I had a list actually. I think you can also check out a Steam curator page for Ludum Dare to kind of find out all the LD games that end up being like final game. So maybe take a moment to kind of think about what is, where do you go from here? Um, and ideally kind of have a chat with all your friends, kind of see what worked, what didn't work, and good time to kind of have a post-mortem, kind of reassess your skills, see what you missed out, see what you messed up, see what you can learn, um, and basically just when is the next jam? Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of it. Those are the sort of be prepared before, while, after, and at the end, kind of a thing from me. I hope you all have a great jam. I hope this was somewhat useful. I have, I mean, I usually end up sharing a lot more, or like there are lots of links and resources. I think we're also like kind of right on time at this point, I suppose. But in the coming days, in the WTF community Discord as well, we'll share resources so that you can go there and see as well. Um, uh, there are lots of books about jams. There are also lots of videos about jams. Even if you search YouTube, you'll find a lot of videos. But yeah, so I hope this was somewhat useful. And yeah, that's it. Like, you can take questions if there are questions.
So we have a bunch of questions, Yadu. The first one being, can I use assets that I didn't buy or my friend bought, but who's not participating? So can we use those assets?
That is kind of gray-ish. I don't think you can legally do that, because when you're buying something on a store, for instance, you're buying an asset, it's kind of licensed to the person who buys it. So technically, legally, it's like if I use your car, is it borrowing or stealing? Kind of a question. Did I just use a don't download my car reference here? But the point I'm trying to make is that usually the license applies to you. So you can technically use whatever is legally allowed to use. So if you have bought it, then you can use it, is the point.
And if they bought some pack from a marketplace, do they have to attach a supporting like a invoice of those assets? Um,
Not
or
really. I mean, we've never done that kind of a thing. I mean, it's an honor system. I mean, I know that like if, like, yeah, so if, yeah, we trust you to like do the right things.
and a lot of like a bunch of people have asked what's the judging criteria. So I
Yeah.
would say trust the jury for that and leave it to the jury. Even we don't know what's the criteria like.
Yeah.
So,
Another question is, do we have to export the game to HTML only?
up to you. If you just want to upload an HTML build, that is also fine. But if you have other target platforms that you want to support, like you want to send a Windows build, and or if you want anything is fine. Like, but I think an HTML build is more easy to access, which is why I said an HTML build would be like nice. But you can build to other platforms which you think would also be helpful. If there is an HTML build, the likelihood of people playing that build is very high, as opposed to it being a zip file that they have to download. Just calling it as we've seen it.
Yeah. And
And for
my
folks who
question
are
is,
asking, yeah, go on.
sorry, do we have to upload the project file of the build as well?
No.
No. Perfect.
So for folks who are asking themes, we'll announce the themes right before the jam, 19th, 6 o'clock in the evening. We'll announce that, and then you can start working on those.
Yeah, it'll
Uh,
announce on the WTF Discord server, so you have to be in the WTF community server. All those who applied on Luma, I think you'd already got an invite to join the server, so please join the WTF Discord server as well.
Yeah, and please ask your team members also to register for on the Luma link, and they should be a part of the community during the jam. And please ensure that you input all the team members' name along with the submission on each page. Each is not mandatory, but it's preferred if all the team members are registered there, so that anyone who has worked on the game can display as a part of their portfolio. But please make sure when you're submitting, input the team member's name, because we'll use those for the shortlisted ones. We'll invite them to Bangalore, as we've been communicating. So, Yadu, do you have any? All the folks are asking, is there anything that they should focus on while building a game during game jams? I
I like
think,
what Joey is asking. Yeah, Joey is asking if who is the jury. Sorry, I
Yeah,
can't tell you that right now, but it would be helpful to know how much emphasis to put on art versus gameplay. Doesn't what do you
so
think,
I
Joey?
mean, in a very like a, I think the art versus gameplay wala thing is, I think supporting art is always helpful. As in, like, supporting, as in whatever supports your mechanics or whatever support your narrative in a way. But I think you should fundamentally focus on the gameplay a lot more, because otherwise it needs to be a playable, functional game also. So we like everything else kind of cohesive, like working together. So you should think about, like, I think art is also like everything. Like, you should be thinking about music, you should be thinking about sound, art as well. But it's it's you should consider, but not just art.
but please make sure your game is playable, guys.
Yeah,
That's the first and foremost thing.
There was a question about Unreal also. Like, yeah, I think
yeah.
Unreal is fine, but the upload sizes on HIO is like kind of limited. So there is a tool, there's a Butler tool which lets you upload more than that or something. But it's a, like, you'll have to figure it out yourself. Because like file uploads through the browser has a size limit. So I'm not entirely sure what is an empty project size on Unreal, which is probably big. So just be wary of that. Unreal blueprints are all great, but just just think about it.
There's a
Yadu,
guy.
any tips for solo jammers?
Yeah, I mean, this guy called Kratik has been on every single masterclass over the last week or so, and uh,
Achievement unlocked.
yeah, he's now realized that there's no teammate, but
Oh no. I'm sure,
I
like, I
know,
think if you really want to team up, there would be people on all the Discords, like all the collective, all our Discords have lots of people asking about
yeah,
teammates also. Like, even if you want to do solo, um, I would say if you have somebody to talk to or like share your work, right? Like, a lot of times solo, like, so the Ludum Dare 48 is a compo, which is a solo competition, whereas the 72 is a jam, which is like a team based. The solo folks essentially just keep posting updates about their work. They keep blogging about it. So I would also say keep talking about it, share your work, get feedback from the community. The Discords are open. So I think that would be a great place to kind of keep you motivated, and also give feedback to people as well when they share, so that that loop kind of goes on. So I think, yeah.
And you
And
still have 48 hours to find a team member. As Yadu mentioned, you can uh, find any team member in these discords that we have cumulatively: IGDC, Game Dev, and WTF community.
indie GG, there are a lot of ones, right? Indie game
Yeah.
group, Indie lots. I know we spoke about AI generated art as part of the FAQs as well, but the question was, will there be bias for self-made art versus asset packs? What about AI generated art?
I think the jury has to decide, I suppose. Like, I don't think anyone would have biases. Maybe unless they bring their subjective biases. But I think most people would be objective about this. I think we would end up seeing it as a whole. At this point, everybody's using AI, and different people have different stances. The legal stance is different and all that. I think everyone has a personal kind of a thing. But I think as like adults and people in this space doing the work every day, we would probably have a very objective thought about this. And when you're like looking at games, I think you'd look at it as a whole. Like if you played like a lot of indie games out there, like some of them look very not greatly done. I'm not gonna point out games, but like some of the great games out there are not the best looking games also. So I don't like. I think if your gameplay and if your game, through itself shines through, it's fine. But then again, uh, like you should think about AI art in general, and just like you should just probably personally consider your like approach to it. Maybe I don't know. Like again, it's like a I don't know if this question if answer has a bias now.
So feel free to use whichever engine you want to use. A bunch of like a lot of people, folks on the chat have been asking, which can I make a game with? Unreal Engine, Unity. So feel free. And we've put commonly asked FAQs on the edge page. You please feel free to go through that and read the rules and regulations and everything. That might help and answer a lot of questions that you might have. If you still have any questions, please drop them on the chat on the Discord community. Ansh, so for joining the community, you'll have to register on the Luma link. The Luma link, I think you should have it, but I'll quickly share that right away on the chat. So once you have that, we'll approve it, and you'll receive a Discord invite link. So I've shared the Luma link again on the chat. How are the top teams selected, and are there any categories, or is it just based on judges' scores? I think we've answered that question. So trust the jury and trust their judgment on this one, and we'll let you know whichever team is selected. Cool.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Anyone?
Somebody asked if they're using code from their old project files. How do you know? How do you verify? Do I get rejected? I mean,
I think that's fine.
Yeah, like so that's also a thing about asset reuse, right? Like you will always have like boilerplate stuff lying around. Like it's not like I'm going to go into a jam like unprepared and write everything from scratch. I'd not expect to do that. If you're using middleware, like if you're using Unity or if you're using an engine, for instance, like you're already like cheating, I suppose, if your thought is like that. So it's fine to use your like base code or the things that you've written. Like I think the only thing I would recommend is to build a new game. Like if you have old projects, the thing is that they're stale, and I think you will personally feel a lot more gratified if you kind of jump into a new project and finish it off. Like so that way, like I think rip apart an old project and bring your code, stuff into it. But otherwise, I think it will be much more interesting because it will be much more focused, right? Like it will have a better chance to create something around the themes and rather than retrofit something that you build early on. So I think, and yeah, so I would recommend reusing stuff, but not necessarily restarting a project into the and fitting into the theme types.
And one question a lot of people have been asking me on DMs is, can they use Chat GPT? The answer is obviously yes, for sure. Be limitless. Use Chat GPT as much as you want. That's not an issue. Cool. I think this was lovely, Yadu. Thanks for taking out the time, and we'll see you guys on Friday evening. Excited for this. Keep your pizzas ready, your food ready. That's
So remember to share
be
the
bio
pictures
basis.
of your food also.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. See you on Saturday. Bye.
All the best.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Yadus. Bye bye. See you. Bye, Sanj.